Dorothy, I can't tell you how shocked I was to receive the invitation to the reunion. I haven't responded because I'm still trying to get over the shock and other feelings it brought up for me.
I had not worked on any of the previous reunions.
Why are we being invited to the reunion now? What has changed that makes it possible for you to extend an invitation to us at this time? Who made the decision to invite us?
It is quite possible that it has been discussed before and voted down. This time, it just wasn't.
Have you surveyed the other class members who might attend and asked them their feelings about the invitation to us, and are they okay with it?
Like I said, I was delighted that my black classmates did get to come because they had every right to be there, and it sure did not offend me or bother me one bit.
I do think that we had a really good group working on the reunion. Perhaps those who had been in charge before were probably of a different mindset. I don't think that's something that we should be proud of. I mean, to me, that is something that just, in this day and time, it should happen. It just should happen.
Tucker, Marshall Ellis, Mary Buckley, and Michael. We should all set aside some time to get together before we go to the reunion and talk about what happened to us, what we experienced, memories, how it affected us then, and how it's affecting us now. From Faye to everyone, hello friends. I'm certain that I would love a chance for us to get together. The last time we were all together was 40 years ago this May. From Marshall Ellis to everyone, I plan to attend and I'm open to your recommendations. From Faye to Cheryl, yes, it's a little spooky to have the past come back in the form of an invitation from South Panola class of 1969. I realize that we have never talked about our individual experiences, and I've been profoundly shocked at some of the things people have told me. I don't think we have the skills and maturity to have the kind of deep conversation with each other that we can now. It's a conversation I'm ready to have.
My sister and I were the first African Americans to graduate from South Panola High School in the year of 1967.
There was only 2 black in each one of my classes that I went to. There was only 2 blacks in each class. I remember only 19 blacks in the whole high school.
I remember being in the cotton field in the heat, sweat rolling off of me, dust all around my neck, chopping cotton and sweltering in 100-degree weather. And I remember looking up and seeing a figure in the distance headed towards us.
I remember the superintendent of education came out to our house. We were farmers.
We were trying to figure out, who is that? Who is that? Because nobody ever came out into the cotton field where we were.
And he came out and he talked to our parents.
He was coming looking very serious and stern and he was on a mission.
And really, I don't think we had any say-so in this. I think this was something that our parents kind of decided.
I do remember my parents getting a letter in the mail saying that we could either go to South Panola or continue on to Patton Lane.
He said, this form here says you want to transfer to the white school. Is that true? And we said, yes.
So my mom asked my sister and I if we wanted to do which one.
We didn't have a clue as to, what we were getting into. I thought it was myself. I thought it was an adventure. This is going to be fun.
My sister says, well, I'm going to South Panola. Well, I'm not going to let my sister go any place without me, especially some place like that. So we ended up signing the consent form that we would go to South Panola.
I guess it had to begin somewhere.
They didn't just sit down and talk to us and tell us, you may not be treated the same way as you have been treated.
We hadn't been schooled on what to expect.
No one told us what to expect.
If I had known what to expect, if I had been told what to expect, I probably would not have gone.
you knew that things like that existed, but then you really got to experience it then as far as the racism is concerned.
If I had known what was going to happen, no, I would not have gone there.
You know, it just kind of brought back memories and thoughts for me.
I was contemplating, thinking more things. You know, y'all asked some stuff that I don't guess I thought about after school or during school. Since you brought it up, I said, I remember this and remember that. And, you know, I guess did a lot of just thinking about how it turned out and what it did.
You have your childhood friends, people that you've grown up with all your life, and then to come back together as adults and realize that they've grown up too.
We have never sat down and discussed that. And Ronnie and I grew up together, and I don't know how he felt, or Frank, or Rupert, or any of them. So we never talked it, so never really thought about it.
Certainly I'd seen them at class reunions, but hadn't really talked in depth with any of them. But that gave us a chance to kind of see the kind of people that they've turned out to be.
There was this invisible line, if you will. I don't know that it was overtly stated that, but there was this, you just knew there was a line.
Like I said, we didn't play with it. You know, Ronnie and I grew up 2 houses apart. There were blacks that lived behind us on a big farm. And we talked to them all the time. We'd go there and fish at their pond or where they fished. But that was the line, wasn't it? We never saw them again if we were out there fishing or something. But that was all there was.
It was like it was two separate worlds in a lot of ways.
It was two worlds.
We were basically 2 towns. It was Batesville and there was Patton Lane.
One thing that I remember, it found me hard to believe that I grew up in town, the same town with these people, and didn't know them. Yeah. Didn't know anything about them. Didn't know them at all. But I think that was more from our parents and aspect of
Deep South parents.
Yeah.
Everybody in here they grew up. Their parents, you know, would stop you, tell you what you were going to do, and that's what you did. About I don't say socializing, but come here and leave him alone. Come on, let's go, or something. You know.
I can't imagine the feelings that they had coming into our school. I know how I would. Well, I can't imagine how I would feel going to a school that I was totally different, different culture, different race, and all those. You know.
I think we have to get to this point in our lives to realize how brave they really had to have been, and how you feel about your own children. What must their parents have felt to uproot them and subject them to us? I mean, that must have been really scary for their parents.
I'm saying it was a lot tougher on them to come to our school than it was for us.
Most definitely. Yeah.
I remember reading in the paper about this new school. I think they said $1 million new high school. And that's when I decided to come here. I said, if it's going to be a new school, I'm going to it.
We all came together here. We came from the
Old
high school downtown in our sophomore year, middle of the sophomore year, and at the same time everybody came.
That's right.
Yeah. So we actually, as a class of 69, all started together here at this building.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we thought this was something. We really did.
We have about an hour of clips. They are loosely organized by themes that were raised in both groups. The people who are here are central in both dialogues, and so the people that should be here are here, and I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful dialogue today.
I remember getting off that bus the first day and someone called us a nigger. I had never in my life been called a nigger before.
I remember getting on the bus. That's where I had my biggest headache. It was going to school.
I rode a school bus, and I was, like everyone else, assigned a seat right behind the driver. But that did not protect me at all. I was still called a bunch of names. I was still hit with spitballs every day I got on the bus. Of course, by the time I got to school, I was sort of relieved to be around more people than those that were on the bus. So my first experience was pretty dramatic.
I do remember getting on the bus, and it was 6 in our family, 6, and we had the front seats to the right, and Miss Applewhite, our bus driver, Miss Applewhite, told us that those are y'all seats. And we and we were real obedient kids. We sat in those seats, and I remember getting on that bus and not looking back for a year, back to see who was behind me. I looked in front of me. I also remember having to go down the hall behind the teacher, changing classes. You would get the, you goddamn nigger, you coon, or whatever, and you kind of scooted behind the teacher for safety, because there were kids on the side of the hall who were calling you names, and all the white kids would be up against the wall. And what we would do is I'll see which teacher was coming from the cafeteria going to their classroom, and I'd get behind that teacher. And as I walked, they'd be saying, you N-word, you so-and-so, and I'd be trotting behind that teacher for a safety net to get back to my classroom.
It was scary. I mean, I carried anxiety the whole time I was here, right in the pit of my stomach. I was always knotted up for the 3 years that I was here. Shoulders tense, stomach in knots, but you just learn to accommodate it and just start feeling like normalcy to you, until you left and realized that it wasn't normal, so.
We would be walking down the hall, changing classes. And this is really funny, because I never knew that they called black people coons. They never told us that kind of stuff, and we never really got that kind of stuff, because like you said, we never went into the city, because we in the country on our farm, And my sister and I knew what a coon looked like, so we looking around trying to find the coon. And never saw a coon. And every day we would go home, my dad would say, so how was your day today? And when, like Dad, we heard this, we walking down the hall and they said, there go a coon. But we didn't see no coon, and he and my mom both just started laughing. We like, what's so funny? And they was like, that's what they call black people coons. I'm like, well, I didn't know that. A couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, might have been a couple of months, I don't know. We walking down, going to our locker, open the door, and there's a brown paper bag. And I noticed, I'm like, oh, this bag is moving. There was a coon in the bag in our locker.
There were some kids when we were in high school that were bullies. I mean, I would have walked across the street to keep from having to encounter them, and I can't imagine what it must have been for my classmates.
Come in the hallway, I get bucked by someone so hard in my back, and I look back to see who knocked me, and they all would fall back, or they threw a spitball, and I had this big blob of spit in the back of my neck, and of course they start giggling and walk away from it. They all fall back, so you never knew who did it, even though I knew one of them had to be the one who did it. But it wasn't, you didn't want to walk down the hall either, not with a lot of kids, because you're definitely going to be assaulted. So.
Guinea pigs.
If you live in Mississippi today, in Batesville, you'd be hard-pressed not to interact with an African-American person, even if you didn't want to. So that ship has sailed. But I know that there's still barriers to communication, but you'll never find that particular kind of situation ever again where you could police an environment of segregation.
I would too. I wouldn't stand up. I felt very self-conscious, but I didn't stand.
Great assemblies. The bands played, remember?
We had a version of Dixie which had a long trumpet fanfare. And when this starts playing, the students, the white students, they're screaming and yelling and they're energized. And it's not just for the team.
The song they sang then was I Wish I Was in Dixie. That was one of the favorite songs. I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, hooray.
There's some cultural resonances that song has for people.
I remember when the song came on, I was like, I'm not going to stand up and sing this song. This is stupid. I don't believe this. So I remember I sat down in protest. I was thinking somebody was going to bop me on the head for doing that. That was their song. I was terrified. It was like an act of resistance,
I never thought about it much till one day I heard a guy say to me, when you play that song, I just get so angry. I see those black students, and I'd like to go kill them. I thought, whoa, we're touching a nerve here. But imagine if you're the minority, you're sitting in the sea of people who are standing and cheering for a tune that has such resonance, a century's worth, and knowing that, I'm not welcome here. And some of these people not only don't want me here, if they were braver, they would harm me or they would do something.
At every prep rally, they played that song. And I don't think any of the African Americans stood up. I know I never did.
And, it's really took me aback. And forever after, whenever that song was played, I was wondering, okay, now what happens?
I had no idea what the song meant in a way, but I used to watch old movies where they would be having slaves and the way they treat them, and that song would come on, so I knew it was a negative for me.
We talk about the civility we had it. But just below the surface, there were people who would have broken that veneer. And we every day on the television saw violent images and heard awful statements made. And it was part of the sea that we swam in. And we were lucky to have that bubble where we didn't have a riot in school. We could have. And it wouldn't have taken much to get it started, given the times.
And we would always sit over in that corner, over there in that corner over there, right?
Yeah,
and they're right. When they played Dixie, we would just sit, and they would look at us. Yeah. And they all stood and they were getting it on, and we were just sitting there just.
The fact that we didn't like Dixie was just another thing we had to take. There was no place to go to say, this is painful for us, this is why it's painful, we want this addressed. Today you have those kinds of avenues. That's why the Dixie and Colonel Reb was addressed at Ole Miss. This is because players and supporters said, in today's society we shouldn't have this. Back then there was no means of communication for us. Again, it was the invisible line, it was being isolated, and no one to take up our cause.
They weren't given a chance in sports. Not in football. Not in football. They weren't.
Did anybody try?
Alan Tucker and Marshall Ellis tried out, and they stayed maybe 2 weeks. And I would not have stayed 2 days if I was done the way they were done on the field and treated. It's just the way it was.
He got hit more than the average.
I'd say when the whistle blew, there was some more licks going on. I think
real late blowing whistle.
Yeah, and the players, we didn't blow the whistle. Believe me, we didn't blow the whistle. But here again, it was just that's just the way it was. It's like Gene said. Sometimes maybe we should have stepped up and said something, but.
You're saying peer pressure from your
exactly
more
exactly.
Stopped you from that than anything.
Well, you push it off. You push it off real quick. You look at it and say, "Dang, I wouldn't like to be treated like that." But then you just get it out of your mind real quick and move on. That's the way it was with me. I can't speak for everyone, but I think that's what I just got it out of my mind as fast as I could and didn't think about it.
And I think that's that fear. You say, okay, now what? So I do speak up. Do I get kicked off the team? Do I get ridiculed? That's a pretty heavy burden to put on a teenager.
And Lord, we could have used both of them on our football team. I can tell you. We could have used both of them, and they were great athletes. I think they were very good athletes, and they just weren't given a chance.
They let it happen.
You're talking about the adults let it happen.
Well, they did. They could have stopped it.
But here again, they came up earlier than we did, and they had the same mindset as we did, except probably even worse.
Dorothy and I played basketball. We took PE with the basketball girls, but we did not get to play. We did everything the girls did and everything, but they wouldn't let us play basketball. You know, why don't they let us play, you know? We doing everything they doing, we practicing with them, and you know, but we did not get to play on the team. We weren't even invited to play on the team, invited to anything, you know, that they did, but we had to do everything they did.
We did not have that kind of collective consciousness, you know, as a country, as a culture, to be conscious of the impact that your behavior may have on another person. We're in a better place today. We have the language, we have the processes. I mean, we're here now.
It wasn't a true prom. It was...
We called it a banquet. It was a big
Junior senior banquet.
meal. We all dressed to the nines, and then we had a band, I think, with music and a dance afterwards.
And it was segregated, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It was not integrated.
Well, you as black classmates that went, are y'all surprised that we didn't know this?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm shocked.
Yes.
That's what we always thought it was like you all were in on it.
Yeah, because...
You know, and you didn't want us there. A sign went up on the bulletin board directly across from Mr. Hamlin's office where you had to sign your name if you were coming. Mr. Hamlin's office in there?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
His was to the very left as you came in.
This is where I think the board, they had the board where they put the notice of the prom up on this board, and you had to sign up. After our names went up, the list disappeared, and then there was an announcement made. It would be a private party, and only those invited could come.
We were looking forward to going to the junior and senior prom, and we had to sell, I can't recall what kind of goods they were. Candy, was it? But we all made our quota. So, okay, everything was supposedly cool.
Do you think they weren't allowed to come? I don't remember that.
I had no idea.
That's me. I have no idea.
Me either.
They weren't allowed to come. They were turned away at the door.
They came?
Were they
Yeah.
really?
I was out there. I know they did. They showed up in tux and gowns.
So we all get dressed up and we go up to this private location. I don't recall exactly where it was.
And Mr. Sissel met him at the door and turned him away. I was outside.
Do you know that those...
I cannot believe so many of y'all didn't know.
I did not know it.
I might have been, I just don't remember it.
Thank God for Wayne Pruitt, because people may have thought we made that up. I mean, you know, I mean, we actually came. Thank God Wayne saw us.
If I hadn't been standing out there, you know.
You might not have known.
I wouldn't have known. But
So
I was
that
out
had
there.
nothing to do with our feelings or our thoughts.
No.
We drive up. I think it was like 3 cars of us, and we're all dressed to go in to the event, kind of knowing, you know, that we weren't going to be allowed because we had heard.
Well, really, are you talking about one of our class reunions?
No.
You're talking...
Our
Out at
senior,
John Kyle.
junior, senior band.
Is that right? I did not know that.
I'm so shocked that our other classmates didn't know that we had been turned away at the door. I always suspected it was work of the adults and not our classmates. That's always been my suspicion.
It was definitely a decision not from the students or your peers, but felt, yes.
We just had to go anyway because we wanted to test it and know we're going. We might not get it, but we're going.
They were in tux. If they had come in, they would have shamed us. They were in tux and gowns. And Miss Sissel met them halfway to the car.
We were denied entry, and they even called the teachers up there. They told us that we couldn't come in because we didn't have an invitation.
And it horrifies me what Wayne just said about our senior prom. Matter of fact, it makes me want to cry. I just can't imagine how they must have felt.
Oh, well, like I said, they were dressed.
I never knew that, and it truly stuns me. I just never...
There were several staff people with them, instructors, that said, no, you're not permitted to enter. This is a private party, and you can't come in.
But as far as hearing what they said, I did not. What kind of how polite it was, or impolite, or whatever. Nor Miss Sissel, I'm sure it was not rude or ugly, but
direct.
Direct.
It was direct. I'm sure of that.
It's not surprising because, as I said before, I had a lot of issues in his classroom. So now here my chemistry teacher, had the task or was the one to inform us we couldn't come in. That's indicative of what we were going through even in his class.
They turned and went back to the car. There wasn't any scene, any nothing. They just turned around and went back.
My sister even sent me a dress. I remember she sent me a dress from Detroit to go to that prom. And I did not get to get in, so that was really heartbreaking.
And I never, when they were here for the reunion, I never did ask them anything about it. Matter of fact, what brought it up, I wouldn't have ever thought about bringing it up, was when Dorothy Lou said that Cheryl said, why now would you invite us to this?
You know, why are you inviting us now? The rest of us are completely oblivious to why are you inviting us now? I'm like Jean said a minute ago, I feel remorse that I was part of, because I lived it, a culture that made someone feel unaccepted. That breaks my heart.
Why did they do it? If they were actively harassing us, why?
I don't think we went out of our way to make them feel bad, but I don't think we went out of our way to make them feel good.
Yeah.
You know, at that point in our lives.
Were they told to do it? Was it what they were expected to do?
I do think if our reaction to our classmates had been different, it could have caused trouble at the time. You know, we don't like to think about that now, but I think at the time we could have had more trouble if we had been more open to them.
Did they just go along with it? Did they mean it?
You know, we can sit here and think we would like to have been as we are now then, but I don't know what would have happened. I think that's something that we don't like to think about.
A bad thing happened to us 40-something years ago, and we didn't do it to ourselves.
It would be interesting to talk with our classmates that went through that, because I'm sure they got an entirely different perspective on it than we do.
I'm more curious now to hear how their talk went and what they're saying.
Very reason that we are here is because they were affected by what happened. You know, we wouldn't be here today, right now, if somebody hadn't been affected by what happened when we were up there.
I'm sure we'd be horrified to hear their version of our junior and senior years in high school.
As far as my classmates, they're, you know, just the best thing that you could offer a person is friendship or to be friendly.
I wish we had taken time to know the people, you know, to know each other. I didn't make a move to do that, but I wish we had.
We never got to know each other as people, and I would like that opportunity.
I'd like to go back and get to know them then. It's too late for that, but I'd like to get to know them now.
I didn't know my classmates. I knew their faces or their names back here in school, but now I know the group that has participated here today. So I know them, and they're people like I am.
I wish I had known that there were white students who realized what we were going through, and even though they didn't do anything about it or couldn't do anything about it, but that they acknowledged it and were aware of it. And I didn't feel that way then.
But what I would want the classmates to say to me is, we are sorry the way we treated you and your sister.
I felt this need for a long time to go to people who I realized were brave and badly put upon, and felt like I could have at least given a word of encouragement had I had the courage to do that, and I didn't. The words at the time might not have changed anything, and my words decades later don't change anything. And I'm sorry it happened. I don't know if I could have changed it, but at least I can admit it.
I was moved by his apology, and I wasn't even in his class, so I'm looking at it like he's apologizing for the class of '67 also. I appreciate that.
Jean said that an apology after 40 years probably wouldn't mean a lot. And he couldn't be more wrong. To me, it meant everything. And I was very moved by it.
Thank you.
And on apologies, I really don't need any, but it's good to get them and say thank you.
I just want to make sure that the African American people in this room realize that they are part of the heroes of our local civil rights movement. They're the pioneers, like I said before. They're the ones that had to bear the brunt. And, it lasted for a while before the schools were integrated and everything. But these people were on the front lines. And a lot of my perception, and I'm sure other people in this room's first perception of your race on an equal footing was started with you coming to school at South Panola. I think that's a good thing.
Sat on the road and cried, oh Lord, save my soul. Blind man sat on the save my soul. Lord, save my soul. Well, blind